You may have noticed that the previous standards we used for testing the acceptability of risk didn't take into account anything but the risks themselves. We were comparing the risks to either objective standards or to other risks. But sometimes when we're deciding if a risk is acceptable or not, we might want to consider what are the benefits? Why are we taking the risk in the first place? And does the risk compare well to the reasons for taking the risk? And we call that a trade-off test. The idea is that the acceptable standard for the risk gets set by the benefits that the risk offers. We, in fact, could go through quite an elaborate cost-benefit exercise where we add up all of the benefits, and that sets the standard then, the target for what is an acceptable risk. We then add up all of the total risks, and we check whether those risks in fact weigh up against the benefits. If the risks come in less than the benefits, then this is an acceptable risk. If the risks come in worse than the benefits, then this is an unacceptable risk. Now, hidden behind this, and one of the reasons why people get very skeptical of cost-benefit analysis, are two fairly deep and complex problems. The first is that risks and benefits are not the same thing. So to a certain extent, we need a common currency to compare apples with oranges. In fact, there is a way that we can compare apples and oranges. We could do it on nutritional value, we could do it on cost. And the same thing with risks and benefits. And this is in fact where the term cost-benefit analysis comes from. It's the idea of converting everything into dollar values. We compare the total benefit converted to a dollar compared to the total risk compared to dollars and see how they stack up. But the second problem is that risks and benefits accrue to different people. So there we have the problem that a risk may in fact have lots of benefits, but the person who gets the benefit is not the person who takes the risk. So this is where Fishoff came up with the idea of stakeholder parity as a test. So the idea here there is we don't just compare overall costs and benefits, but we break them up according to different groups. So in the picture I've got here, you'll see that Group 1 has benefits greater than costs, Group 3 has benefits greater than costs, but poor Group 2 has costs greater than benefits. So this is then unacceptable because even though the total amount of benefit exceeds the total amount of risk, we have a stakeholder group who is being unfairly subject to risk. Now, one of the ideas that Fishoff came up with a solution is that if we really still want to go ahead with the risk, then for fairness, we ought to start transferring some of the benefits. So Group 1 takes a bit less benefit and uses that to compensate Group 2. We now have every group experiences overall more benefit than cost, and so we could say that the risk is acceptable. So trade-offs treat risks and benefits as balancing forces. We need some common way to compare them, and that can often be controversial exactly how we go about converting risks and benefits to a common currency. It also gets complicated when different groups receive the benefits and risks. I showed one way that you can start to address this, but really this hides some of the social complexity of the problem, because we still have the open question of who gets to decide. Who gets to judge for another group that the benefits really do outweigh the risks? It's very easy for someone who is not experiencing a particular risk to tell another disadvantaged group, don't worry, you're getting lots of benefits, we're compensating you fairly. Whereas the group who's suffering the risk might not consider the compensation fair at all.